So who won the lottery this year? Did Nigeria win the lottery? No, he didn't. And not just because Peter Obi didn't win, even if Peter Obi has had won for the presidency and he was the one there now, he may not still be winning the lottery in the way that guess who is winning the lottery? Kenya. President Ruto is just knocking it out of the park right now. And over the last few months, he's just been making all these um, really fabulous, really awesome speeches and conversations and platforms um, and just relating to Africans and the rest of the world, the direction of the continent, everything we need to do in coming together in as unified as an entity more and operating as an entity more instead of at 54 different countries. I mean, others Lumumba have made reference to this before and have been doing so for years. But this year is special. There is so much. This year there's a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of delivery of it. There is we're really jived up about it. And I hope all of this is not for nothing. I hope all this energy toward it is not for nothing and is going somewhere. And it's been really informative and interesting to listen to how, just all the benefits that we can gain from doing things more together. I mean, think about how disjointed all our 54 countries are versus the other regions. Other regions, they trade so much with each other, are so connected. The road networks are more intertwined and involved with each other. And in Africa, you drive, in West Africa, for example, one country to the other, you go from French speaking to English speaking or vice versa, and they don't even know that much about each other. And it's like, I mean, I understand that the countries were divided up by the colonial masters to benefit whatever they wanted, but it's been a while since then. Why haven't we figured out that our greatest assets are not our resource or anything, but the people? That's the main resource, because they're the ones who are going to do all the extraction, going to do all the intellectual stuff. We're going to do the internet revolution. We're going to do all sorts of, technological or other forms of industrial advances that we're going to need. It's us being connected with ideas, with everything. That's what's going to move it along. And I think we're moving toward that now, the desire, the hope for that, and the focus on that. But it's always been, who's going to do it? Who's going to rally everybody together? There are people doing that now. There's, President Ruto is doing that now. Others are as well, who are speaking to it and are making efforts toward that well, including the president of Ghana too. And this is a very exciting time, and I don't want us to drop the ball, forget about, or make light of it, because I think that it's something that has happened in the past before. We had Gaddafi trying to sort of have one currency for the entire continent, whatever have you. And that probably intimidated the West. Maybe they didn't like it. But, I think those times are different from this time. I think those times were, Gaddafi had many flaws, and that was, and not that that has to do with it, but more that this current time, there's so much more support for it. If anything, once it has more momentum and more minds rallied around it, will stand stronger than when one person is like saying, well, I think we should, do this or that. So right now, it's a special moment, because the voices that assert the interest in moving things in this direction are so plentiful, are becoming more plentiful. And the young people are really seem to be rallying around this concept as well. And I want them to more and more, because I think it's fabulous. I think it's incredibly helpful, and it allows Africa to focus inward instead of always looking to the West for for bringing in imports and for just leaving to go to the West to work. I think for keeping things closer to home and growing Africa. The way we've been operating so far is going to keep Africa broke forever. It's the way that, you know, we just always import so many, all the finished goods. There's only raw materials that we send over for somebody else, Western country, to finish it and return it back to us at exorbitant prices, even though the materials left from Africa in the first place. And then when it comes to jobs, instead of staying there and having all the different supply chains, all the different value chains in production being on ground. Instead, we ship the jobs abroad. So instead of the people there, instead of working locally in Africa, they go abroad to work. And so it's a dynamic that'll just keep us in the same cycle of being poor for forever. I mean, I don't see what would change. So it seems like there is so much more thinking now, that more critical thinking. I mean, I don't know if it was absent before. I think it probably was always present here and there, but not in the way that it is more and more now, in a way of coming together and applying this critical thinking and being more proactive about it overall. And now everyone's just finally starting to wake up and realize that it's like, if Africa is going to get out of the cycle of poverty that it is in, things have to change. There have to be changes in the way that things are being handled. So you know, there's so much excitement around Ruto's presidency right now because, for example, you know, he has gone to the Global Financial Summit Pact in Paris, and is talking about, you know, how to deal with the IMF loans and the World Bank, and how to work it so that, you know, the countries are not paying back billions of dollars that could be used to develop in just servicing loans that they never got a good interest rate on in the first place by virtue of being a poor country and then getting a poor interest rate. You know, essentially kind of like payday loans in the West. If you don't know anything about the ones in the US, it's like loans that are essentially just loan shark kind of loans, and that's what Africa has been stuck with, because of the risk and because it's a poor country. They don't get the good interest rates that the other countries are getting. So it just kind of keeps them in a cycle. So you know, but President Ruto is there saying, you know what, let's just take, you know, what we have right now, let's keep it. And then reschedule when these loans become due for another 50 years, instead of making us pay all these loans, all these servicing fees, all these servicing expenses every year. That makes it impossible for us to ever catch up. You know, the way these loans are designed, it's impossible. It just keeps the debtor imprisoned, because there's no way that in their development and their just economic progress is going to happen enough to keep up with it, because they don't get the money to just give it back, essentially. And I mean, I understand that banks are in the business of making money. They're not really, but so it's really interesting too, because you know, he is sitting together with his colleagues in the West, and now talking to them about how to rearrange these loans and manage them in a way that actually makes it possible for the growth that you know, we say we want to actually happen. You know, the West says they want African countries to grow too, but you know, they don't really mean it. I mean, how can they? Their primary interest is their constituents, so, and their shareholders, and everything Africa is becomes an afterthought. And so it's when Africans and our and our kids are when Africa's own children are speaking on behalf of Africa, that's when the change is really going to happen, because they're going to be willing to put the nation first. And the continent first. Why would Europe put and America put Africa first? It is not really their job to do so, and it is okay that they don't. I think that's another thing that that Africans need to understand and accept, that it's not really, of course they want maybe a person in Africa not to be starving, sort of as a secondary consideration, right? Or of course, as a tertiary consideration, right? It's never going to be the primary consideration, and it doesn't have to be, because Africans' own children are intelligent enough and are capable and have gone to all the, you know, acquired the same education experiences enough to do the job themselves. So there's no reason why it's the job of the West to be doing it for them all the time. So I mean, there are many hurdles that have prevented everything from being done responsibly in that way, but mainly because the democratically elected leaders in African countries are not, and I say democratically elected because it's not only because of dictatorship. Sometimes it's because of the democratically elected ones, because it's a huge population that doesn't know what it's good for them, or doesn't realize that what they can have and how they're being used and how all the resources are being stolen, is still going to pick somebody that's not going to stand up for them. So finally, the population they are rising up. They are choosing leaders like Ruto. They're choosing somebody like Peter Obi. They're voting for these kinds of candidates because they want to be spoken for well. And Africa is seeing its new day, and it's good. It's great.